hilarious watching all of the like older generations or even anyone in general talking about the Gen Z stare, specifically in customer service environments, saying that we don't really know how to talk to people, we can't communicate. And no, we can communicate quite well, actually. You're just stupid.
Yeah, you can take whichever.
Oh, Gen Z just does the Gen Z stare. They don't know how to talk to people. Fair. A lot of Gen Z don't know how to talk to people. But a lot of older generations talk too much, too rudely, and too proudly while being too stupid.
It's time! Gen Z finally has their thing! Well, I mean, allegedly. And it's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for this for a minute. Like, we've had the boomer confusion, the boomer anger, the Gen X rise and Gen X grease, the millennial cringe and the millennial pause. And now, my friends, it is Gen Z's turn. And today, we're talking about the, drumroll please, the Gen Z stare. Hey guys, what's up? It's Emergency and welcome back to my channel. Today, we are talking about the Gen Z stare.
Bruh, I just seen somebody coin the term Gen Z stare, and I'm so glad somebody gave it a term because the way some people in our generation act, it's like we cracked the old generations talking about the lead paint stare, but a lot of y'all have that same exact vibe.
And if this is your first time hearing about the Gen Z stare, then I truly applaud you for staying off of TikTok because it has been the source of discourse for the past 2 weeks. But if you're unfamiliar, people across social media have been talking about this Gen Z phenomena, specifically dissecting the way that Gen Z or young people socially interact in public and especially in service interactions. And the gag of this whole discourse is that a lot of people in Gen Z weren't even aware that this was necessarily even a thing. I mean, you can even see the results here in this poll that I had on my channel, and you know we got a good Gen Z audience here, okay? And here's the thing. I feel like there are a couple of things going on in this discourse right now that are making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, because there's been a lot of back and forth online as to what exactly the Gen Z stare means. What are people talking about when they say that Gen Z has a problem with staring or just like not really keeping up socially? And where specifically is this happening? Because I've been watching this conversation evolve over the past couple of weeks, and it really seems that like what we as Gen Z are taking this conversation to mean is different from what older generations are claiming the Gen Z stare is, when in reality I feel like both are kind of getting at the same underlying issue. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the Gen Z stare, whether it has any validity, whether or not it's an actual thing, and getting to the bottom of whether Gen Z is actually socially awkward or if the rest of the world is just that annoying. So I guess to start this conversation off, let's actually start by defining and figuring out what the Gen Z stare or the Gen Z gaze actually is. Wait, hold on, not Gen Z gaze. Okay, mandatory cutscene aside, finding exactly what the Gen Z stare is has been pretty much the biggest topic of debate here, with older generations claiming it as being the blank middle distance stare into the void often employed by Gen Z folk, with it often being used in settings where you're being asked a question or just when you're expected to exchange pleasantries. So like think you're sitting on a bus or like a train station and someone comes up and someone sitting next to you is like, oh, hey, how are you doing? And the reply is... Or older gens have been defining it as a young person staring into nowhere as you attempt to communicate with them. Essentially alluding to the fact that Gen Z is kind of awkward and doesn't really have the social skills to hold the conversation, to have small talk, or really operate in a society socially.
Everyone's been explaining the Gen Z stare wrong, and I wanted to do it because my coworker did it to me literally an hour ago, and this is actually what it is. Hey, this is so-and-so. I wanted you guys to exchange numbers because we just need to be in contact about certain things. Can you exchange numbers? Is that okay? Like, do you want to do that? Or you can just give her my number. Right, yes, actually, yeah, I could do that. I just want to make sure it was okay. Like I had your permission. Yeah, that's fine. You can just give her my number because you have it already.
And the issue here is really twofold because this conversation just started off as being really disjointed. Like we're all arguing about different things here. Like on one hand, you have a group of people, that group of people being like millennials and older, talking about how Gen Z is incredibly socially awkward, stunted, and doesn't know how to participate or engage in regular conversations, as well as small talk, and usually extends or cites this as being commonplace either at work or out in public. Then you have many of us in Gen Z that have heard this conversation and taken it as those instances in customer service where you have these people, usually older people like the millennials plus, either asking self-explanatory questions, making ridiculous comments or banter, or treating the checkout card reader like it's a 40-colored Rubik's Cube. And that's also very valid, and we're going to talk about both of these things. But the thing is, and mind you, I'm always going to ride for us as Gen Z, but I feel like in terms of this conversation, we're starting to miss the point just a little bit, because unfortunately, I do think that there are points to be made here. And we need to dive into each of these arguments to understand, for one, where they're coming from, and two, whether or not these are valid at all. Okay, let's start this off by talking about what the older generations are talking about when it comes to things like social anxiety and social skills in Gen Z. And one thing that they're citing is the phenomenon of young people not knowing how to start or initiate conversations, i.e. staring at servers when they ask you how your day's going, or if they can get anything started for you. When you get a phone call, waiting until the person who called you says something first, and other just small talk interactions.
Hi, welcome in. How is everyone tonight? Can I get you started with something to drink? Do you need a minute? I can give you a minute. Take your time.
And I think this is coming down to a lot of the issues in our generation that we've spoken about quite a few times on this channel before, where I think like on the purely social aspect of just like giving pleasantries to people or just like responding to a hello should be something that we're more comfortable with doing. Like, I feel like that should be a good baseline. But we should take a little bit of accountability in the fact that like, yeah, social skills, or at least socializing holistically in our generation looks a little bit different from other generations. And a lot of you might not like to hear this, but like a good portion of that can be attributed to the way in which the majority of us were socialized or not socialized growing up. And we're going to get into a little bit more of that later. And this isn't necessarily a slight to us saying that we're like some kind of social pariah, but I do think inherently there is a certain level of avoidance in these sets of specific social interactions. And I'm not saying generally, because we're going to get into the Gen Z side of the argument. And I think a lot of the criticism, and I think a lot of the things that we've been saying are like problems are for sure problems. But I think just for saying hello or like things that kind of require you to respond socially does raise some eyebrows. And this is coming from someone that gets social anxiety bad, okay? And this sort of social behavior is something that we've seen a couple of times in like major online conversations, because we do tend to navigate spaces, at least online, from a place of distance and almost detachment. Like, it goes back to that whole conversation that was on social media a couple months back, where people were talking about whether or not you were owed a hello from a cashier. You remember that conversation? There was this large sentiment of like not being entitled to someone's time or conversation, which in some cases is very true, but also in that same breath, we do have to acknowledge that that is in contrast and in conflict with a lot of our pleas for connection and community in our day-to-day lives. And I think that piece is what's contributing to the disconnect in this conversation, because I do think that it's okay to be socially anxious. Like, I'm a baddie with social anxiety. Like, what's that Wendy clip? Shout out to y'all with social anxiety. I gotta feel bad for y'all. Like,
shout out to everybody with social anxiety. I kind of feel sorry for you. Oh, yeah.
It's completely fine to be socially anxious, and it's understandable to be socially avoidant, but you can't be both of those things and not working on either, and also expect connection and community from others. Because again, that kind of goes against that whole principle of like not owing anyone anything. And unfortunately, there are actually numbers to support the fact that like our lack of socialization is kind of having an impact on the world around us. In an article from the New York Post talking about the Gen Z gaze, or the Gen Z stare, they say that many rejected the notion that just because a job isn't great doesn't mean you shouldn't be greeting customers. With someone from one of the older generations saying, I remember the first time a friend told me she didn't think customers were owed friendliness. Just a mind-boggling mindset, one person shared. It's just so insidious, and I really don't think people realize they're infected with it. Work is so much better for everyone when you're making an effort. So we aren't just seeing this on a customer service level. And I have some thoughts on the customer service aspect of this conversation, which we're going to get into when we talk about Gen Z's approach to the Gen Z stare debate or whatever. But this isn't just a thing exclusive to customer service, because there's also a study about Gen Z in the office talking about things like small talk and how we've kind of killed small talk in the office. According to the study, the art of small talk is dying out because younger workers feel more comfortable communicating online, according to research. A poll of 2,000 employees found that 74% struggle to make light conversations with coworkers in the kitchen and elevator, with Gen Z leading with 40% of its employees feeling this way, millennials coming in second with 33%, and 24% of Gen X. So while if you've seen any of my Gen Z videos before, you know that I'm not a fan of the whole like Gen Z is ruining everything discourse, especially when it comes to the workplace, because I think a lot of it is kind of dramatized and sensationalized and ultimately does end up harming Gen Z more than it does like educating the populace. But I think an explanation for this that a lot of people for some reason just like don't really acknowledge as being valid is that for at least the workplace, when it comes to things like being socially awkward or like lacking these social skills, is the whole concept of remote and hybrid work kind of being the norm for a lot of Gen Z when they enter the workplace. A lot of people underplay a lot of things about the pandemic. But one thing especially that they underplay is the impact that had socially and developmentally for a whole generation of people that were just coming of age, whether that be in the workforce, whether that be as new adults, high schoolers, and for some of us, even middle schoolers. Like, we really spent our formative years in Zoom calls, where oftentimes participation and responses were optional. So when you go through that during your developmental stages and that becomes more normal, of course, like when you grow up or go into different settings, that's going to impact how you show up in the world. So you can't necessarily put all the blame for people, at least on the workspace, for a work culture that they did not grow up in or have experience with. Now, what I will say, because I see a lot of my older generation viewers getting a little frustrated with me being like, oh, this isn't unique to y'all, everyone's had to go through their own thing. I will say, I do think that we as Gen Z need to put a little bit more effort in to correct that behavior, because I think a lot of times in these conversations, we address and we understand where it's coming from. You know, like most things, an explanation is not an excuse. And there isn't as much conversation around changing the narrative or changing the actual behaviors to cause people to paint these narratives. So I think what the challenge is for us, which I will say is not fair and sucks. It sucks. It's not optimal at all, which is really unfortunate. But the challenge for us is going to have to be becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially in these social interactions. And before I get jumped from people with extreme or extenuating cases where they're either at their wit's end or have other contributing factors as to why social interactions are a little bit more awkward or a little bit more difficult for them, I don't mean this to be widely applicable to every single case, but for your average person, it would not be death-inducing to venture outside of what is considered to be comfortable socially and trudge through small talk. Now, with that said, older gens, we do have to have a talk. We do have to have a talk. We do have to have a conversation, because this conversation, like I said, is twofold. Y'all had us in the first half. The second half, we do have some things we need to talk about and address. Well, yes, Gen Z does have a problem with staring and not responding to things when it comes to small talk and stuff like that. There are also a sect of people calling the Gen Z stare just a lack of general customer service and not responding to your every question and not making you feel like the customer is always right. And this doesn't even have to be in a customer setting. This can be in just like an interpersonal conversation. And this is, for one, not something that is unique to Gen Z. I just think for some reason when young people do it, it is taken as like the sensational thing, because sometimes the things that y'all say and questions y'all ask simply deserve nothing more than a stare, because what do you mean? Do you have no shame? In a quote from the New York Post, naturally, many service workers who are guilty of the Gen Z gaze defended themselves and reminded the internet that their jobs suck. No disrespect, but if you have to deal with the insane amount of absolutely effing brain dead people you've met in your life for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you would do this, and people have been doing this since jobs as a concept were invented, wrote one person on X. But people really underestimate the types of questions or just comments that people make on a day-to-day basis that do not warrant anything but a stare. Because if you respond the way you want to respond to that question or comment, you are then in the wrong. So all you can do is... Like, there are so many story times online about some excruciatingly stupid interactions coming from customers just because they believe that the customer is always right. Like, we see this all the time. And like, the fact of the matter is, for like that aspect of the conversation, like, most people aren't being paid enough to deal with all of that on a day-to-day basis. Like, I know that's their job and I know that's what they're hired to do, but like, it's not enough. They're not getting paid enough to deal with all of that, okay?
Right, that's me making candles. He walks in on the phone. He's like, yeah, I'll send it over to you. Yeah, no, I'll just send it over to you. Yeah. No, I'll send it over to you. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's pointless to even try to greet this person because they're not even going to notice that I'm there, right? He comes right up to the counter and he goes, any gum? You got any gum here? And I go, gum? No, I don't think so. He goes, no gum at a store? I go, no, we don't have gum. And he goes, Tic Tac? Ah! I go, no, sorry, no gum, no Tic Tacs. He goes, well, I have a meeting. Do you have gum? What? And then he goes over to the candy section, right? The infamous Haichu section, and he goes, Haichu? As if that's something? I go, yeah, Haichu. He goes, as if to be like, I caught you. You're a dummy at your job. I found gum.
And let me tell you something. People are always quick to call Gen Z entitled. They're so quick to be like, oh, Gen Z is so entitled to this and that. But we need to also have the conversation about how there's also a rising entitlement in older generations as well. Like, everyone feels really entitled. And this goes mostly for Gen X and boomers. Like, millennials, sister, I love you. Don't get it twisted. I know you've been mentioned a couple times, but Gen Z and millennials, we go together real bad. I think Yeah, a lot of people in the older generations have a life where at some point they're able to afford a house, kids, and an education all with one job, and it didn't even have to be super high paying. Now for most of us, and this isn't just a Gen Z thing, I think that Gen Z just feels it more because this is all we got and we're newer entering all this. We don't and can't aspire to those same things anymore. So yeah, people aren't going to be as invested in their job because they know the job is going to help them get by, but it's not going to help them get the life that they want, because most people's single jobs don't pay for a living wage or for the lifestyle that they need anymore.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I just wanted to get a decaf Vietnamese iced coffee with oat milk, if that's all right.
So we actually don't have any decaf coffee, and I can also only do the Vietnamese with sweetened condensed milk.
Okay, I mean, like, I always, like, come in and order, like, the same thing. So, like, and they've done decaf for me before, so I just, like, would really like a decaf Vietnamese iced coffee with oat milk. I just don't understand, like, I have ordered that before here.
Right, so we've never had decaf coffee.
But I have gotten it before multiple times, so.
My researcher wanted to add a little note in the video where she points out that she personally has worked in service and retail jobs throughout her life, and she feels like she always turns into a customer service robot whenever she's on the clock to lock in. Like, this meme is really her. I actually don't remember working once. I clocked in. I will black out as the spirit of customer service possess my mortal body once again. Please. But now that we've heard both sides, let's kind of talk about the nuances within them and kind of where they intersect. And the first way we're going to do this is talking about the compulsory social interactions that are required of a society. Like, I think in life and in an optimal society, there are a lot of mandatory cutscenes that you got to get through, a lot of small talk, a lot of seemingly meaningless conversations you have to have. And those are important. They don't always feel like they are, and they don't always feel great to have, but they are important to maintaining a society. And I think that the more we stray from that and the more we kind of demonize small talk, that's sort of been like a topic of conversation for like the past however many years. People making it their personality to hate small talk. Like, oh my God, I hate small talk. I hate talking about nothing and not having substantive conversations, as if those two are like mutually exclusive things. Like, I think the whole thing of small talk is to sort of find that common ground where you can talk about the things that are deeper, and it doesn't always have to be one or the other. And I think that when we start thinking more black and white that way and start distancing ourselves from having small talk or just having conversations altogether, the more individualized and isolated our society gets. Because yes, we do owe people common decency. It is the truth that people in your day-to-day life are your fellow community members, and a little hey, how you're doing, and or responding to that does go a long way. And this is sort of that accountability piece where I do think that Gen Z needs to work on this generally. Like, of course, like, Gen Z isn't a monolith. Most generations aren't monoliths. But I think when it comes to these general feelings of lack of community, lack of connection, and this loneliness epidemic that we keep talking about, we have to, one, ask ourselves, how are our actions contributing to this? And two, acknowledge the fact that, like, yeah, asking someone who's taking your order in line, or someone you're just sitting next to, or someone you're like awkwardly in an elevator with, how their day is, or just saying hello won't kill you and may in fact actually just make both of y'all's lives better. Or like, these little sweet social nothings are important to not only building community, but also just for developing more pro-social behaviors.
The COVID divide in Gen Z has not been more obvious than with this Gen Z stare conversation. One, y'all, the lack of comprehension is jumping out so hard with the amount of people who are like, no, I'm staring at you because you're stupid. You asked me a dumb question while I was at my customer service shop. That's not what anybody's talking about. That's not, and if you had comprehension skills, you would be able to tell, right? But also, the whole, oh, well, I don't owe anybody a conversation. I don't owe you small talk. But also, I want to build community. Why can't I build community? And simultaneously, I'm scared to make a phone call because I have anxiety. Or I don't say hello when I pick up the phone. That's not my job. I don't owe you a greeting.
And y'all know I love to add a little figure to my claims. Like, there's actually some science supporting the fact that like small talk and like conversing with people, even in these seemingly insignificant places, does have a positive impact on your health. There was an experiment done years ago in the Journal of Experimental Psychology where Chicago Metro train commuters were instructed to either have conversations with people who sat next to them or to just sit in silence and enjoy their solitude. And another group was kind of instructed to just like do whatever came naturally to them. And the research found, according to this cut article, that of the three groups, those in the conversation condition reported the most positive train ride, and those in the solitude condition reported the most negative. Among those who talked, the longer the conversation, the better the ride. So while this doesn't show cut and dry that like, yeah, talking to people always makes your life 100% better, there have been some experiments done to support the notion that like, yeah, talking to people and engaging in conversation does make you feel better. And I think in a society where people are increasingly lonely and are increasingly lacking that form of connection in their day-to-day lives, that could mean the world. And kind of on that point and expanding on something that I said a little bit earlier in this video when it comes to like owing people things and the whole notion of like community and like loneliness and all that, I do think that it's really contradictory for people to feel like they owe people nothing. Like I really don't like that whole notion, that whole conversation talking point that like we don't owe people this, we don't owe people that, we owe people nothing. Like I think that it bothers me because of the contradiction. Like to feel like we owe each other nothing, but to also expect so much of others when it comes to things like community, accountability, and grace. Like we see this all the time with the way the internet culture has evolved to become more so punitive of people. Like if none of us truly owe anyone anything, then we also can't expect people to owe us any grace when we do mess up or we are having a hard time. Nor can we expect any accountability from people we do or don't know. Because with the logic of us not owing each other anything, they don't owe us that either. And that extreme concept of detachment and not owing each other anything is just super individualistic and is the antithesis of community. Like you really can't have it both ways. And I'm not saying that it's okay to like not have accountability and not give people grace and all that when it comes to like not owing people things. I'm just saying that, yeah, again, you can't have it both ways. And in my opinion, we should at least owe each other some level of decency, some level of kindness, because those are both so necessary for the community that we say that we yearn for so much.
I bet you expect other people to respect the fact that you don't owe them anything. Well, they don't owe you the respect of them not owing you anything, because they don't owe you anything either. Yes, it is true that you are owed nothing, but it also means that you are owed nothing. So you don't get to be mad or annoyed by anything anyone ever does, ever, including talking about the Gen Z stare, because you don't get to have an expectation that people will not talk about the Gen Z stare. And this also means you are not owed being welcome in society. So if you're not willing to do what society has deemed is the bare minimum to be a society, which in general is just like acknowledging and treating other human beings as human beings.
And really quick, let's take a break from like the whole accountability piece for a second and talk about this need to identify generational quirks. Because when we talk about the Gen Z stare, we talk about all the other generational quirks that have been going on for other generations. Like we have to talk about like, why do we do that? Like why is that a thing? Like I said before, the millennial pause, the Gen Z shade, the Gen X entitlement, and so on and so on. Like I feel like online we itch, we urge, we want to catapult ourselves into having these hallmark generational identifiers for each other that seem to explain or like point out behavior. And I'm just like, why? And like not to pull out like the woe is us card, but like for Gen Z, it just feels like Gen Z's quirks are always so harmful and it also are just generally used against us in real life. Like I feel like for all the other generational quirks, like it's very haha hee hee or like something that's like memed on, but like for Gen Z's quirks, it's like actually taken seriously and used against us in like physical ways. Like millennials get called cringe and told that they don't know how to start talking when they start a video on time. Gen X gets called angry, okay? But Gen Z gets called lazy and socially inept. Hello? Like I get calling stuff out for the funnies, for and gigs of it all, but like the difference here is like the whole conversation about punching up versus punching down. Like, you know, like the older you are, the more social capital and like general capital you have in the world. So it's not like we're calling Gen X angry. Oops. Oh well, y'all got your whole lives together, but like, and that doesn't really affect them in any substantial way because we don't really hold power in society yet the same way that the older generations do. But like when Gen Z gets called lazy and like socially awkward and hard to work with and stuff like that, that physically impacts our actual job possibilities. And there's just like so much evidence of this happening in real life, of people not wanting to hire Gen Z, Gen Z being the first to get fired when it comes to layoffs and stuff because they are hard to work with, whether or not the actual employees that they are employing or firing are hard to work with themselves, or whether or not they're just Gen Z and they think like, oh, Gen Z is hard to work with, so let's get rid of them. Again, whole video talking about that if you want to check that out, which is why I want to have this conversation, because I think like people really get these narratives and run with them and actually act upon them, which then makes the situation harder for us. And I know a big counter argument to this whole thing is going to be the whole, well, who set the system up of it all, which real, we kind of did do that. We kind of did start the whole generational trend identifier thing on social media and labeling and generational, and that's fine. Actually, now that I say it, I kind of feel like that one clip of Wendy Williams.
I would ask you to respect our privacy, but please, I don't respect people's privacy. That's why I do the hot topics.
Right. Okay, to close off this video, because I feel like we've been talking about the Gen Z stare entirely too long, to get on my soapbox a little bit and talk about the disillusionment within Gen Z right now. So when it comes to like Gen Z not wanting to interact, not wanting to do the whole thing, we do have to acknowledge there is something to be said about the rising resentment in Gen Z. Like, no, the majority of us can't just buckle down with one job and expect all of our ends to meet anymore. Due to our country's socioeconomic situation right now, word to Jaden Smith, we aren't given the life that we were promised as kids, as many generations aren't before. But you know, as time goes on, things just tend to get worse. And God forbid we're rightfully disillusioned with adulthood, okay? Because it feels like we won't be able to afford anything ever.
Not to even talk about the terrible job market that we're in, that's been the worst in recent history. And the fact that so many people rely on multiple part-time side gigs, or just stuck and are violently unhappy at their full-time jobs because the job market is so bad that they're afraid to leave their job.
Like, it's a lose-lose for young professionals right now, and that's kind of sad. And to put everything in perspective, $100,000 with no dependents in 5 of California's counties is still considered to be low income. So if that's telling you anything about where we are, and I know that this is a very specific and niche part of the country, that is saying something. And if Gen Z is collectively working more jobs and potentially more hours and trying to upkeep all of that, along with any semblance of a social life just to survive, I can't understand why a lot of young people aren't the happiest about clocking in every day. And again, this isn't to excuse the lack of social behavior, it is to inform and explain it. So maybe there can be some empathy in both ways while we're working on that, because everyone's burnt out. With that said though, again, as a generation, if we want to beat the Gen Z stare allegations, despite it all, we should look to become more comfortable with small talk and engaging in these small pleasantries and just conversations. But like older generations, I love y'all, but let's also try not to make it weird. Because at the end of the day, we all want connection, we all want community, and I think we really do need to start being nicer to each other. Or don't, I don't care.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Emergency and welcome back to our channel. Today's video was a highly requested one, to say the least. Y'all have been asking for this, I think pretty much since I started this Let's Talk About series, and I've been waiting on it. I'm not gonna lie, because I got word that this specific show, and I know I'm being vague like it's not in the title, but this specific show, Elite Season 4, was getting a Season 4. And when I found that out, I was like, there's no way I'm about to talk about this show, only for there to be a new season that comes out and basically everything that I thought I knew not be true anymore. So I waited. I put up with y'all asking every video, where's the Elite video? Where's the Elite video? Please talk about Elite. I need Elite now. Here we are. So we're finally here. This show is a masterpiece. Well, maybe not a masterpiece, but it's very, very, very good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. But of course, you know me, it could be a masterpiece, but nothing is perfect. So we're gonna talk about the absolute ride that Season 4 of Elite was. The good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing, because there was a lot of confusing. I have a lot of notes asking a lot of questions, so hopefully we can figure this out together. But before we do all that, make sure if you are new to the channel to hit that subscribe button, because only, I don't even know the percentage right now, Rumi, put some overlay over, only 14.2% of y'all are actually subscribed, and that's ridiculous. So y'all should subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's talk about Elite Season 4. For those of you that are not familiar with the Elite series, you are sincerely missing out, and I recommend that you watch all 4 seasons before you come here, because if you don't, you are pretty much going to be spoiled for the entire show, which is your loss. But Elite is this Spanish show set in Spain, in Spanish. I listen to the English dub because though I am a Spanish minor, I just do not want to use the brain power. But the show is about these extremely rich private school, high school kids. The whole gist of it is that it's like a murder mystery, and every season someone else dies. And they tell the story in this reverse chronological order, which by now we're familiar with because we've seen other shows with it, but this show actually does it pretty well. I do have some thoughts on the continued use of it that we'll get into, but it's usually told by revealing in the first episode who croaked, and then each episode really giving us more and more context of what happened leading up to the croaking. And I know I said I'd leave this for later, but my one pet peeve about this is that they always, Season 1, okay, I understand. Season 2, okay, I get it. But by Season 3, we know the characters enough where they keep trying to sow seeds of doubt to try and make us feel like these characters would actually do something that bad, but it never is them. And I don't know why they keep trying to convince us that it could possibly be, because by now we know their character traits. We know what kind of people they are, and they need to really be pushed to the edge to actually do something like that. And honestly, I don't think they have or really ever will. And it's always, I'll just cut to the chase, either Samuel or Guzman. And I just don't really get it, because like by now, like most of them have lost everything that they loved anyway. So it's not like, But since I brought up their names, there are a lot of characters in this show, and I honestly would love to give you a full synopsis of who everybody is. But I really don't want to be here for over 20 minutes, both for my sake and your sake. So we're gonna give a real Cliff Notes version of who we have here. So main characters who you need to know if you haven't seen it. You have Samuel, who is like, I think the main character, but also not the main character. He's like the guy who we're supposed to be rooting for. I guess he's one of the main protagonists. TLDR on him, his girlfriend died, but his brother was also dating his girlfriend, and his brother's a criminal, so like they sent him away and he's in hiding. And Samuel isn't one of like the rich kids, he's on scholarship and he has to like fight like social class and whatever. But this season, he finally has zero love interest. Last season, he was really into Carla, who was this other rich girl. But this season, he's into another girl named, I can't remember her name, I just know that she really looks like Demi Lovato. Not really, but like the haircut and vibe. Ari, her name is Ari. And then we have Guzman, who is the other, I guess, main character. Not in this season though. Guzman was kind of giving like side back character energy because he didn't really talk that much. He was mostly just being mad at Samuel. His sister was the one who died in season 1, the one that Samuel was in love with. He fell in love with this hijabi girl named Nadia. Nadia went off to college. Oh yeah, that's also something I need to talk about. I'm sorry, this is so scattered. I promise it'll make sense eventually. Most of these people in this season all should have graduated. Like they should have been gone by now, but they all got in their own sets of circumstances where they're basically super seniors, with the exception of the 4 new characters in the show. There's also Rebecca, who is the daughter of a matriarchal mobster. Basically, her mom is dope as. She also used to date Sam. She's really cool. She's really like edgy. Her fits are always amazing and her makeup's always amazing. But like she really just gives like those badass vibes. Not necessarily this season. This season she's giving very much simp, which I mean, okay, character development, progression, growth, maybe. Definitely really liked her character this season. There's also Omar and Ander, and I'm gonna put them together because they're a couple and alone they don't have too much difference this season, to be honest. Omar is Nadia's older brother and also Ander's boyfriend. I can't tell whether I like them as a couple or if they're just like inherently toxic for each other but won't let each other go. I am always in flux every single season about which is which. But generally every season, this one included, there's like a turmoil in their relationship and they end up breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together, which gives some great drama, but is also kind of like tiring after a certain point because like how many times are you really gonna, you know, try and respin the old wheel? But they're cute, love that for them. I think the final returning character is Cayetana, and Cayetana, oof, I hated Cayetana. I hated Cayetana for the longest time just because she used to support a character I did not like in the past seasons before he croaked. But Cayetana, when she was first introduced, was the janitor's daughter at this rich school, and she'd pretend to be like one of like the rich kids, and then she got exposed for being the janitor's daughter. Basically, she's the only one that actually got out of high school but is trapped in high school because she got hired as the janitor. So she's kind of like the eyes and ears for the group. And that's like the recurring cast that have been with us throughout the previous seasons. And then they add 4 new characters, and these 4 characters really do spice it up. Like usually I don't like when they introduce new characters just because it usually gives like, oh, they're like 1 season and done. But these 4 really just impacted the story. They sent the whole thing for a spin. I don't think I talked about season 4's plot enough specifically because it describes why they're there. The old principal, who was Ander's mom, got removed because after like 3 people dying, like you probably shouldn't be president at the school where you let that happen. But she gets replaced by this new principal who's a lot stricter and comes with 3 kids. One of them being Patrick, who is played by the Manu Rios. Beautiful man, need I say more? He has like daddy issues, to be honest, because like he doesn't like not being in control because he got into a car accident and that took away all his control. So now he's like, I'm gonna control everything. So he tries to mess up and home wreck Ander and Omar's relationship, and they are like a throuple for like a hot second, and then things just get messy and they just kind of switch off with each other, which we'll talk about, very messy. But then with Patrick, there is his twin, Ari, but gives Demi Lovato vibes, circa yogurt shop fiasco. To all the elite stands out there, I feel like the introduction of Ari and her character was a direct result of like the elite screenwriters or writers in general knowing that we needed a replacement for Lou and her energy because they are actually very similar. I feel like they get along pretty well. Maybe not because they're both the same or similar way, but like that just really like privileged, snarky, snooty, like is really snaky to everyone but is like really damaged underneath. And that's just who she is. She's really judgmental. She has like a drinking problem where like she switches into her alter ego after she gets a sip of wine. But yeah, she generally just takes like one sip of wine and then automatically just wants to be with everybody. I mean, like, go off, do you, but also like don't judge people for doing the same or less, you know? Then there's the younger sister, Mencia, who this season is a whole mess, just a general mess, all throughout mess. She's like seen as like the problem child because she was involved in a lot of their family's drama and trauma. But basically she ends up getting kicked out of her house and ultimately becomes a, how can I say this without being demonetized? A nighttime worker, if you get my vibes. And oh yeah, Mencia and Lurebe ended up getting into a relationship and they are cute but toxic. But yeah, that's them. And then the final character, I know I said this would be quick, but this actually ended up taking a lot more time than I thought. The final character is Prince Man. What's his name? Philippe. I hate Philippe. All the homies hate Philippe. He is a prince who has a shady past of being a SAer. Awful human. He ends up getting with Cayetana because she's trying to social climb and become a designer, and he's like a fashion prince, whatever. He basically does end up, you knowing Cayetana, which is awful, and I hope he gets what's coming to him next season. But yeah, those are all the characters. While they are all so different, they are all so good. And there's just so much, well, not racial diversity, because they did get rid of most, if not all of their diversity last season. But you know, it's rich part of Spain. They just all have such unique personalities and jump off of each other so well that make things just so much more dramatic, spicy, and juicy. Like, it really just is like a giant modern day soap opera. And I love it. I really do love it for that. And I just really want to harp on the new characters just for a second, just because I said this before. They did such a good job. Like, their characters were so good. Like, I've never had a character that was introduced in just one season that made me love them, hate them, love them, and hate them again. Like, it was just such a volatile relationship between them and me because, yes, we're like friends. Like, I was able to have like such a complex emotional roller coaster with them, which I don't feel like could happen or hasn't happened with a lot of other shows or even past seasons. And I guess I can't make a commentary on Elite without actually mentioning how hot all the characters are, like every last one of them. Yeah, the casting director knew what they were doing, respectfully. Another nice thing, since we're getting into the good, another nice thing was that while they didn't have diversity, they had inclusion. Like, having Rebe be bi was a really nice touch, like having her like navigate that too, and then like her mom finding out and just being like cool with it. Not with who she was with, but the fact that she was really dope. Just cause like they didn't have to go there, but it was nice that they did, you know? I think this season was like my favorite out of all of them because I was just generally so excited and so enticed, captured, and raptured. Not the rapture. I was just so interested continuously this season that I really can't complain in that department. But I will complain in other departments. The first thing that I want to talk about that not that I didn't like, but are just like kind of things, you know? We've been here before, we've had this conversation before about like the trope of love triangles. I feel like every drama has it. I think the show just in general, not even specifically this season, is just love triangles galore. And I feel like that is what drives most of the plot. Like, of course, there's like the murder, but the love triangles are a strong point of the plot, I promise. Just because usually one of the people in one of the love triangles is one of the people that end up being the main victim, the person that we're trying to investigate, figure out whom and whomst. But just this season, we have a love triangle between Rebe, Mencia, and I guess if you want to count the creepy old dude. You have another one between Ander, Omar, and Patrick. And then you have the one between like the main guys of like Samuel, Guzman, and Ari. And I guess if you want to count it and make it full circle, you have a love triangle between Cayetana, Philippe, and his past. But going back to Samuel Guzman, one thing I just didn't get or never really understood was why the relationship got so rocky so fast. I never really understood because I feel like that part of the show was very forced. Like the conflict between Guzman and Samuel was very, very, very forced. After all they've been through, 3 seasons worth of trauma, them faking Sam's own death, having to grieve the loss of a mutual friend that they cared about, 2 that they cared about, having to hide multiple dead bodies, lie to countless amounts of people, basically having to be like the closest that you can really be to someone and share like the most secrets with someone just for a girl with a bob to mess it all up. Like I don't understand why that made their relationship so volatile. Like after all they went through, why was that the one thing that messed up the relationship? I'm not saying that Ari is bad or awful or anything. I'm just saying like after all they've been through and all the things that could have broken their friendship, why was this the one thing that stirred the pot? Like it didn't make sense. Like maybe season 1 that would have been okay, but we're 4 seasons in. It just doesn't make sense why that's a big deal. Like, it just seems very high school. But like, how can you frame someone for murder and in the same breath be immature enough to fight and ruin your relationship over someone you met a month ago? I just don't understand where that beef's coming from. Another thing that I want to touch on that isn't necessarily a bad thing, just something that I've noticed, is that especially for this season, I've realized that the elite formula is very much the same. Like, by this point, it's just what we're expecting, but I didn't realize how similar each of the seasons really are. It always involves some mystery of someone who is presumed to be dead. There's always some drama, some turmoil that leads up to it, and then in the finale, there's always this investigator who never actually knows how to do their job correctly. And then at the end, it shows exactly what happened, and then literally just turns all these high schoolers into sociopaths for like the last 15 minutes of the show. Like, for this one, I really understand because I've been through this 3 times, but it's just the way that they just snapped into sociopath mode that really freaked me out. Like, the second that Guzman went pew pew and took out the creepy guy, they all came together and were like, all right, so we're gonna hide the body. We're not gonna tell anyone about this. You need to tell this story, you need to tell that story, we need to make sure our stories are linked. You do not tell this person, you do not tell that person. Guzman, wash your hands, go, say this, say that, and we'll make it out of here safe. And I was just like, huh? What? They've done this like multiple seasons, but this was the one that I was really just like, damn. Y'all are crazy. Do not mess with the elite kids because they will get rid of you and get rid of you fast. Make sure you're never found again. I know we just talked about characters, but I really just want to jump back and really dive into a certain sect of characters, like a certain few that I feel like really carried this season. For one, I feel like Mencia's story was one of like the more interesting ones this season. Like the whole love triangle between like the main boys and Ari really wasn't that interesting. Like, it was kind of stale. But Mencia's story was actually very interesting and actually really traumatic when you think about it. Because mind you, this whole time she's like 16, 17 going through all of this. Like, almost going through something extremely, extremely traumatic twice. But for one of them, luckily Rebecca was able to save her. But just seeing like her character and seeing how far someone can go after they feel absolutely rejected and feel not welcomed was crazy. And I'm just so glad that she had someone like David there with her to just keep it, like, hold her down and make sure that things never went too far. Well, they did go too far, but at least everyone made it out alive. Another person that I mentioned but I want to talk about is Cayetana. Cayetana really had a redemption arc this season. She had her redemption arc because like I said, I hated Cayetana. I hated Cayetana for the longest time for sticking with Polo, for being just so dumb and like so jaded and being like, Polo, like, I hated her for the longest time. But she really had a redemption arc. Outside of the awful thing that happened to her like near the end, just seeing her have to battle with like the accusations, with like her own common sense and moral judgment, and just seeing her grow as a person and seeing her kind of grow out of like that social climber sort of mindset was great growth for her. And I think the last person I really want to talk about now is, you knew this was coming. Manu King Rios. He was crazy in this show. He was crazy. And I don't think people talk about like how crazy he actually is. Like, besides this whole temper tantrum where he like knocks out his sister, the whole stuff that he was doing with Omar and Ander, specifically the part where they broke up. I don't know if y'all caught this. I barely caught exactly what the intention behind this was. But when he FaceTimed Omar, when he was having his conversation with Ander, basically berating Ander, questioning his love for Omar, like, that was evil. Like, if Ander wasn't such a good person for Omar, like, that could have gone awfully. Like, I feel like in Patrick or like Manu's mind, he was trying to set up Ander to basically trash talk Omar to get Omar to not like Ander anymore so that Patrick and Omar can be together, which is incredibly fucked up. The amount of mental gymnastics you have to go through to be able to think of a plan like that and then actually go through with it. Like, something is wrong, love. Something has to be miscalculated, unequilibriized, like something. Like, that just is not okay. That's not right. Throughout the season, he really did do the most to try and manipulate everyone and ended up doing actually nothing. Like, got nothing out of it. No matter what he did, nothing really went his way. Like, at the end of the day, Omar and Ander are still together. He's still single. All he did was accelerate the growth that they were going to have together. So, I mean, like, okay. And with all that said and out the way, let's talk about the finale, friends. Let's talk about the finale because a lot happened in the finale. We already talked about like the whole like sociopathy of the friend group. I feel like this finale was really good. I feel like it was really good. It did a lot of things. It tied up some knots and it left tons and tons of room for season 5. Basically, Demi Lovato got knocked out by like the creepy guy who was with Mencia. And one thing that got me was that they made it a lot worse than it actually was. Like, they portrayed it as being a lot worse than it actually was. Like, of course it was still awful. Like, that grown man beat up on Ari.
One thing I will say though that just baffles me is, why did Ari just decide to stand there and be like, I'm
calling my dad. I'm gonna tell him everything right in front of that man. Like, you didn't have to say that right to that. You could have walked away and done it, you know? Because what did you think would happen if you threatened this whole man's life? Like, you have his whole life in your hands. You think you're just gonna sit there and be like, oh no. Like, why would you tell him that? And then turn around to go call him. Like, what are you doing? I'm sorry, but I just don't understand.
I just felt like that was a little bit anticlimactic. And also I think it was kind of funny how Guzman took down the creepy man. Like, he brings out this firecracker shooter out of nowhere, and he's like, you like see him like loaded up, and he's like, hey, and the guy turns around and stops. He like stops and turns around and is like, yeah. Like, after he just beat up someone and is running for his life, he like stops to turn around and be like, huh? And then the firework goes in his back and he croaks. It was just like the way that they shot it and the way that it was just orchestrated, that was kind of funny to me. And then the very last bit of the finale, where the main group sends off Ander and Guzman to go on their hiking trip or their exploration trip, because Guzman's trying to basically avoid police and Ander is trying to live his best life while he can. I feel like that was good. That was like a nice sentimental piece to like wrap up the season. I just don't really get why Guzman was trying to avoid the feds. They previously established that Ari's dad can basically get anything done with a phone call. So if Guzman came clean to Ari and her dad, he could have scrubbed all the records, and probably would have scrubbed all the records, because he would be happy that Guzman did that, just because of the stuff they did with Mencia and now Ari. And Guzman could have just stayed and just like finished his school career. Because like, I don't know what the reason is, but these kids will do anything but graduate in this show. So I don't really understand that motivation. Maybe it's like shame, or maybe he doesn't like want them to have that over him. I don't know. But he's gonna have to come back eventually. Like, they're not gonna like stop searching. Like, he didn't go without a trace. Like, there's still evidence of what happened. But you know, it's whatever. But overall, I feel like the finale was very good. Did what it needed to do for sure. I definitely have to give this show a solid 9 out of 10. Like, it is a solid 9 out of 10. Highly would recommend. Love this series. Love this season. If you haven't seen it and you still want to see it, even despite the spoilers, I highly recommend. I love this show so much. It brings me so much happiness. Thank you all so much for watching and waiting for so long for this video to come out. I hope it was everything you asked for and more, or at least gave something. If you're new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I post. If you enjoyed this video though, leave a like, because that helps out a lot, and comment down below what your favorite parts of the show were, or what show I should watch next. I did see that Generation Part 2 came out, so that might be next. I might have to follow up and see how that ended up. If you want to keep up with me and whatever I'm doing, you can follow me over here at imergency. Finally, if you want to interact more with me and be a part of the community we have going on here, you can click the link in my description to join our community Discord. We are growing, y'all. We're over 300 people now, almost at 400, and it's a really great time. So I definitely recommend, if you are into Discord, or if you just want to chat with me or other people that like talking about shows or just support me, then check the description down below. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. Hey guys, what's up? It's imergency, and welcome back to our channel. Today's video is gonna be a little different, and the background may be a little different, the lighting might be a little different. Bear with me, I just moved. So that means we have a new setup, but this setup isn't really complete, and I'm really trying to figure out like what works best, what looks best. So please bear with me while the background, the set, if you will, changes multiple times throughout multiple videos until I figure out something that I like. So yeah, but today we're gonna be talking about a show that I just recently caught up with and finished. A show that for one reason or another I stopped watching and then started watching once more, and have a lot of thoughts, opinions, jurisdiction. No, basically I have a show that I want to talk about, and that show is called On My Block. And I asked y'all in the community tab, you know I love that community tab, and if you are not familiar with what that is, you should go and click the post notifications right now. If you're not subscribed, and if you're not subscribed, you should definitely subscribe right now. It's basically where I like ask you guys questions, because I run out of video ideas and need your help, and also post pictures sometimes. Definitely go check that out if you want to like participate in future videos or whatever. But yeah, I asked you guys over there what show you wanted me to talk about first, and On My Block won by a landslide. The show that came in number 2nd, I think, was The Society, which most definitely will be coming next, because I'll leave my thoughts and opinions on that to the other video. Right now, let's talk about On My Block. But first, before we get into anything, it's been a while since I've had the pleasure to say this, but this video is proudly sponsored by Cooper. Okay friends, I know what you may be asking. Rumi, well, what's Cooper? Let me tell you. And actually, hold on, before I do that, let me ask you 2 questions first. Number 1, do you like online shopping? Okay. And number 2, Do you like saving money? If the answer to either of these questions, but specifically the second one, was a yes, then Coopert is for you, my friends. Coopert is an online browser extension that is completely free and works in seconds. Literally all you need to do is download the browser extension, go on one of your favorite shopping websites and start shopping, and it's going to start saving you money. Basically what it does is while you're shopping, it combs the internet for all of the available coupon codes that it can find and then applies them at checkout to save you money. This means that anytime you check out on any of the websites that they support, you are going to be saving yourself money. They also have this awesome cashback guarantee where you can click the activate cashback button to get up to 20% cash back. As you can see here, they have a wide list of stores that they support, so it's safe to say that you'll pretty much be covered in saving money pretty much anywhere you go shopping online. And now that I settled that, you may be thinking, Rumi, this is amazing. I can save money and get money back in my own pockets. How do I get started? You can download Coopert completely for free and start saving money shopping by clicking the link down in my description below. Don't worry, I got you. Do us both a favor and start saving with Coopert today. Thank you so much, Coopert, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into On My Block. Sweet, so on my blog. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I have not been the biggest On My Block stan. Okay. I just realized this might be another like unpopular opinions video because from what I've gathered, a lot of people like On My Block. And okay, all right, I'm just not one of those people. Let me preface that season 1, I was here for it. Season 1, I loved On My Block. On My Block was my shit. However, season 2 rolled around and eventually season 3 rolled around, and with each season, my love for the show sort of depreciated, dwindled, went into the gutter. So I found myself at a real crossroads when you are like, talk about On My Block, review On My Block, please, On My Block content, I need it. Simply because I had already seen most of the show except season 3. When I went to pick it up, I realized that I had actually seen like a couple episodes in season 3, but for some reason I just didn't finish it. So I went ahead and rewatched the whole season, and I remembered why. For those of you that aren't familiar with On My Block, or it's been a while since you've last seen it, On My Block revolves around these 4, sometimes 5, high schoolers in California who are all brought together basically because they got themselves caught up in a related scandal. In like season 1, the characters really just vibing and trying to figure out like where this rumored roller world money is, which is basically like the sum of old money that these shady individuals happen to bury and hope to never find again. But of course, our characters eventually found that money, which opened up a whole new realm of issues for them in season 2 and 3. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't introduced who we're talking about. These 4, sometimes 5 characters include Jamal, who is, I feel like, the comedic relief of the show. He's really eccentric and dorky and quirky, very anxious and over-prepared for a lot of things. He's the one who really gets the group into a lot of trouble by eventually finding the roller world money. And most of the time throughout the show, at least in like season 1 and 2, it just really feels like he's off in his own world because like he's so detached and so different and so unbothered by the rest of the characters' plot points, drama, life issues. He's just really focused on what he wants to focus on. And for most of the show, what he's focused on is trying to solve this mystery of Roller World and then eventually the mystery of like Little Ricky and all the other conspiracies that are happening in that town. And I hate to admit it, I really do, but I see myself a lot in Jamal. And it's not just because we're black. The next character in the group is Monse, and Monse has a hate train for her. At least she did for season 1 and 2. She had the biggest hate train because she is known as the most annoying character in the show. Which is so rude. Like, why would they say that? Actually, I know exactly why they say that. Because it's true for like the first couple of seasons. Season 3, I feel like she mellowed out a bit. I'm not sure if like the writers just saw the hate train that was coming from Monse being like the most annoying character. She mellowed out because like in the first couple of seasons, like everything would always be a problem. And for the most part, she would always be the problem. And just generally wouldn't make the best life choices. But yeah, we're following the trend with Love Victor where like the one black woman in the show has some of the worst, not the worst trauma, because the show is pretty traumatic to a certain extent, but she gets dealt like the worst cards. Like not only does she also have the trope like in Love Victor where the mom leaves, but in this one, in season 3, the mom dies, which honestly like might be for the best because her mom was causing her so much trauma. Her mom was such a shitty person, like so awful. Monse also, like Mia in Love Victor, has to deal with the threat, or not really threat, but like the possibility of like moving schools and like uprooting her life and going somewhere else. Now that I think about it, it's really interesting how like similar both of these characters are. Am I sensing a character archetype. Regardless, she's also in an on-again, off-again relationship with Caesar. And to be honest, Caesar, if not for Jamal, would be like the source of all of the group's problems, just because his family is directly tied to like the biggest gang in their area. He has an older brother named Spooky, who was like the head of like the neighborhood gang called the Santos. Caesar just doesn't really know how to express his emotions because his dad left, came back, then left again, and was basically raised by his brother and was brought up into a gang. So as far as like life experience goes, he's had a lot. I feel like Caesar's fatal flaw is definitely like communication, because so many issues, specifically with Monse, could have been resolved if he just knew how to communicate a little better, be more in touch with his feelings, of how he's doing. But you know, he doesn't know how to do that, so of course more drama ensues. And the fourth character is Rudy, and Rudy's honestly kind of my favorite. He's honestly my favorite character just because he is like also comedic relief, but he also has these like random moments where he like calls out every character in the show and makes valid points, but also has the tendency to also be like a creep. Rudy also has a traumatic story because like in season 1, like the one girl that he really loved got shot and killed, and he also got shot in the process, and all that was because of Caesar. So that's always a fun bonding experience between friends. We also get a really deep look into Rudy's family because his house generally serves as like home base for like the group. So like of course we know a lot about his family. We know about the difficulties between his parents' marriage, as well as, honestly, I know I said I liked Rudy the most, but like the best character on the show, Abuelita, who is Rudy's grandma. She's just like the funniest of the show. Like she has no reason being that funny. She just pops in, says her thing, and keeps it pushing. But recently in season 3, the 5th character that I've been alluding to has become a more prominent role, and that is Jasmine. Jasmine is like that one kid in high school that was like super obnoxious and super loud, had a really big personality, but lacked outward self-awareness. They would always be like ones that would be super loud at 7 a.m, always try and be somebody's friend, but would never like get the hint. You feel me? And that is like the embodiment of Jasmine. We find out later, like once we get to know our character, that she is actually very self-aware and knows what she's doing, and continues with that brand just for the sake of like remaining true to herself and her character, which I can respect. Definitely like the first couple of seasons, I definitely wasn't the biggest fan of Jasmine just because I found her character kind of annoying, just because I feel like the main four would be doing something so interesting, then Jasmine would just come along and just kind of derail the plot. And for a plot that's already kind of like slow moving, I just would get annoyed whenever she'd like slow it down some more about whatever she had to say. But in season 3, there's like a little woo, because Rudy and Jasmine start kicking things off. Hold on, pause. We need a moment of appreciation for Jasmine because she really played the long game. No Ariana, but she saw it, she liked it, she wanted it, and she got it. Maybe not in the span of like a season, but over the span of 3 seasons, after chasing Rudy for 2 of them, maybe 2.5, Jasmine and Rudy actually got together. And I love that for them. I really do. But those are like the main characters that you need to know to understand what I'm talking about. Next, we're gonna kind of get into like I really didn't want it to be like an unpopular opinions video, but I feel like y'all love this show. I feel like most people love this show. I just don't. I know I normally go like things I like, things I don't like. We're going off the rails today. I don't know what it is. I said it before, but season 1 was the best season in my opinion. And I think that's because it felt like there were more stakes. I know that things got a lot more intense in season 2 and season 3, but it felt forced. A lot of it felt forced.
And what I mean by forced is that like in season 1, the plot seemed more organic. Like of course that would happen. But like in season 2 and in season 2 and 3, a lot of the plot seemed like manufactured because like they kind of did it to themselves just by their own actions. It doesn't seem as like authentic and I guess genuine, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but that's just what I think. So.
And I really just didn't know what it was because at the end of season 1 there was such a great cliffhanger of just figuring out whether Rudy was going to die or not. Season 2 had a good one too with them getting like abducted, but season 3 definitely was not the strongest season in my opinion. Like there was a lot of character development and I can't fault them for that. There was definitely character development, there was a lot of funny moments and a lot of plot points got resolved, but all in all it wasn't my favorite. It definitely was not my favorite out of all of them. I will say though, I did enjoy that they gave Jamal more of a serious role where they tiled down like his narcissism and annoyingness and tied him more closely with the plot. Because while I love Jamal, loved him as a character, having him be like so distant from like what the rest of the cast was doing just felt off, because sometimes it felt like Jamal was doing stuff that was a lot more important than whatever everyone else was doing with. And other times they'd just be like, Jamal, what are you doing? Go with your friends, be with your friends, stop being weird. But yeah, season 3 really did wonders for his character in my opinion, just because he was present with everybody else, which caused a lot of conflict, but that conflict was juicy, it was dramatic, it was what we needed. And that's another thing, I feel like season 3 really put the group's friendship to the test. For sure, 100%. Because the fact that they had to work together for so long and actually had to be together as a unit really showed the faults and trauma and pain that they kind of glossed over in past seasons, and really just showed like the result of that, like especially near the end where the group is pretty much fighting with each other literally anytime they're together. They all bring up great points, like each of them has in one way or another hurt each other and no one's really addressed it. Like for example, Jamal really got them all in this trouble by fighting the roller world money after everyone was telling him that he wouldn't and that he probably shouldn't, which kickstarted pretty much all of the drama in season 3. Where also Rudy was really mad at Caesar because due to Caesar's direct actions, he was shot and someone that he really cared about was unalived. And Monse really hurt everybody when she said that she was like leaving without really caring about her friends. So they're all like, oh, do we mean nothing to you? But yeah, everyone's trauma came out at different times in this season. That was really fun. And I also want to mention, because I saw this in a comment in my Elite video, that usually in a lot of these teen shows, there isn't a lot of representation of like parents and where like the parents are and how the parents are involved. And I will say for this show, I really liked how they incorporated parents, because it just didn't seem, while it did for the most part seem like the kids were able to do whatever they wanted, there was also a strong parent presence, and a lot of the main characters' conflicts came directly from their parents and the dynamics between them, because you got to see each characters except for Jasmine's parents interact with them and like how each of their actions directly impacts the kids' lives. It just makes it feel like slightly more realistic, as opposed to these kids just going off and doing whatever whenever without any repercussions. So I definitely feel like for like teen shows, they did that right. But now let's actually get into like some unpopular opinions. Let's talk about, let's get into why I am not the biggest fan of this season. This kind of gets into like why I stopped watching it like about halfway through. It just was, this season was just boring to me. Like for most of the episodes, they're just trying to find this person, Lil Ricky, and going on a bunch of different misadventures to like figure out who he is. And while of course, yeah, like the little gags are like funny and stuff, it just feels like, what's the point? It's a little bit too slice of life for me. Like the formula would basically just be like, oh, they have a new suspect for who it could be. They go off and try and figure out who this person is. Monse and Caesar have a moment, then fight. Rudy and Jasmine flirt a little bit, and then Jamal has a whole come to Jesus moment about him having a girlfriend stalker situation. And it's just like that for like at least like 3 episodes straight before like the finale. And for me at least, it just got boring. And might I say like all that build up was kind of for nothing, because the ending was really anticlimactic. They had like the most exciting part of like Spooky going missing and like teasing him being dead just for him to be okay and to have had him solve basically all of their issues without showing exactly how he did it. And that would have been fine. That would have been fine if like Spooky did all that, if they would have shown exactly the exchange between Spooky and Cuchillos. Like they just took all of the hype that they were building for like the past season or like the past couple of episodes and just threw it out the window. Like they really hyped up like the main 4 getting ready to take out this mob boss, and they have like all of their emotions, they have them like having their doubts, they have them fighting, like being nervous, just for all that excitement to be like taken from them. And then we don't even get to see what happened. Like we get to see Spooky all beat up from like taking on the mob boss, but we don't see what happened. So it's just boring. You know, like we saw that for nothing. Like there was no conflict, there was no fighting. Like at least for like the other seasons, you see a little violence, you see a little conflict, like you see like consequence, you know? Like it just feels like here there was no consequence and there was no payoff. So it just left me at the end of the season be like, what? Why did I watch this? Another funny thing that I just want to mention that has no relation to anything else, but the amount of scenes in this season where Spooky is just standing like, literally kills me, because he's like the definition of that standing emoji. It is so funny. Like Spooky is an amazing character. I love Spooky. And while I'm at it, let's talk about that like very last scene in season 3. Basically after all the conflict, Monse decides to actually go to that private school and leave for 2 years. And the group is all like, we're not gonna change, we'll be the same, let's all still be the friends. Meanwhile, their friendship before she left was on life support, literally hanging on by a thread, just because of all the trauma they went through. But after those 2 years, it was so interesting to see how they all turned out. Like with Monse being in private school with all them white friends and her being all like, guys, okay guys. And then we also get a glimpse of like everyone else's life, and for some reason Jamal is like on the football team. Like I don't know what would inspire him to go on the football team after he had that whole character arc of him like clearly not liking football. Maybe his dad forced him into it or something. I don't know. What do y'all think? Y'all probably know more than me on that, so like what's going on there? Ruby and Jasmine are like to be expected, like them being together. Although I will say, I don't know about y'all, but like something about the way that Ruby was looking in that last scene made me feel that maybe Jasmine and him aren't together, or that Ruby's a little, I don't know what it was about it, but it was given like,
Be who you are for your pride.
and my favorite part of that scene is like seeing like Spooky like actually live his dreams. Like Spooky actually grows out his hair, has a wife with a kid. Spooky was looking good. Like, don't tell anybody, but like Spooky was looking good. But then finally the most interesting part of that scene was seeing how Caesar took on Spooky's role as like head of the Santos. Like there was a scene where Caesar and Spooky were talking and Spooky was like, I'm done with this stuff, I'm done. And Caesar's like, what happens if someone tries to take your power? And Spooky's like, I'll let them, like go ahead and take it. And then seeing how Caesar went ahead and did that and is now like in his brother's shoes is so interesting. Like it's such a full circle moment because you just really see how much damage has really been done to Caesar because he's been trying so hard not to be that. And because of him losing his friends and losing Monse, he had nothing else but to go into that life, I guess. Although I really want to see like what happened in those 2 years. Maybe that's what's gonna happen in season 4. I really want to see like the dynamic between Spooky and Caesar and how they've drifted apart between those 2 years, because I can't imagine that Spooky would just let him do that, especially when he's living his life so good and Caesar's not. Overall, I will say that the show is entertaining. It might not be my favorite. I might have not enjoyed it as much as other people may have. And this rating might make y'all mad, and I'm sorry to say, but I give the show like a solid like either 5 or 6 out of 10. Just because it was good. The first season was really good, but it was just like okay for the rest. Like I wasn't like wowed, I wasn't like super encaptured in the plot or the show in general. So sorry, but yeah, it's a 5 out of 6 for me. Don't hate me, okay? But yeah, that's all I gotta say about On My Block. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I post. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like because that helps out a bunch, and comment down below what you thought about On My Block and other shows I should be watching in general. You can follow me on all my socials here at Emergency and click the link in my description to join the community Discord. Next up is the Society, and I am so excited to get into that. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you Cooper for sponsoring this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.